Good Thursday morning. It is November 20th. You have found us here at the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller, and we broadcast from the 13 News Now studios, serving Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina, Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, the Outer Banks. We've got you covered, but not just what's happening here in the Mid-Atlantic. We're going to take a look at some really cool stuff today. We always look across the nation, around the world, and a lot of times we look at climate stories and space stories as well. That's one of the things we're going to cover today. I'm really excited about today's edition of the Weather Desk. We have, first of all, an update on some big storms that rocked Arizona overnight. The severe weather threat has shifted east, but we'll revisit some of the hail that impacted Arizona, and we'll take a look at where severe weather is likely to develop today. We're already seeing some flash flood warnings and some advisories out as that weather has shifted east. We're also going to revisit a family that is recovering from a tremendous tornado that struck St. Louis a little earlier in the year. So we'll talk about that and kind of give you an update on what the weather's looking like back in the central U.S. with the severe weather outlook. So plenty to talk about there. In addition, we have some interesting things happening internationally. I said that's one of the things we cover here on the Weather Desk. And Indonesia right now is experiencing a volcanic eruption. That's on Java, and we'll take a look at that. We also have the prediction, cold weather coming. Now, as a meteorologist, there was a running joke I had for a while when people would ask for the outlook or the forecast. If I had been away from things, I said, well, let me give you the extended outlook. I'd say, you know, we're going to get 3 months of cooler weather. Then it's going to be another 3 months after that of very cold weather, followed by a gradual warm up, and then hot weather after that. They'd be like fascinated, and then I'd say those are the seasons. Obviously, we're coming into the cold weather months, no doubt about that. But a change in the polar vortex, maybe a weakening of that vortex, could spill some very cold weather a little farther south, a little earlier as we get into December. We'll talk about that, and we'll have some cold weather tips for you to take care of with your car and around the house as we prepare for these colder months ahead. In addition, this is something that some of you may be very interested in when we talk about the space situation. Not so much space weather, but a really cool space story. We are tracking the interstellar comet. It's only the third time that we've had one that we've tracked that started outside of our solar system and is coming through. We're going to talk about that, and I've got your Thanksgiving travel outlook. So plenty to talk about here. It's early. We're going to get into Wednesday's travel weather, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what's coming as we look ahead to that following Thanksgiving weekend. Right now, though, we're going to start off with what was going on in Arizona, and you can see as of now, we still have some showers out there, some heavy rain across Texas, some more scattered wet weather across New Mexico, but things were rocking and rolling in Arizona last night. Severe weather through Phoenix, and it was just a really rough go. Let's start off there. Phoenix got slammed by those strong storms last night, and that system dropped hail and a lot of rain across the city, knocking out power to thousands of people. You look at this, looks like snow covering the ground. Those are small hailstones. And again, it's interesting when you get that much ice coming down, it actually lowers the temperatures dramatically till it melts away. So we get that occasionally with those hailstorms, but in this case, that is not snow, that is hail covering the grounds in Phoenix. Also in Phoenix, the torrential downpour caused the roof at the Desert Sky Mall to collapse. These videos show conditions inside and outside the mall where you can see puddles of water covering the floor and the ground. Fortunately, the Phoenix Fire Department says no one got hurt. So some really rough weather there. Now, as we take a look back across New Mexico, I mentioned some showers there, little areas of snow in some of the higher elevations. We've really seen a lot of development with the storminess back across portions of Texas this morning. It's early there, but they're dealing with some pretty big storms that have been rolling through, dropping heavy rain. You can see heavy rain back up across Arkansas, southern parts of Missouri as well. When we talk about the severe weather outlook for today, you can see much of Texas, central Texas, up through Dallas, and you can see Oklahoma Arkansas, all included in this level 1 threat for severe storms. Want to take a little closer look. You can see Little Rock kind of on the edge there. Oklahoma City included in this outlook, along with Lubbock. Amarillo just on the edge. San Angelo included, Austin in it as well. What kinds of threats can they expect with the severe weather threat across this region? Well, you can bet that there's at least a chance for some hail development with some of the strongest storms. So that's in play. Again, it's not a certainty, but where you do get a few of those stronger storms, you might pick up a little bit of hail. Certainly a significant amount of wind, and I'll expand the view here just to show you again the extent of that wind outlook. And then you're wondering, could there be tornadoes? That's another thing that we look for with the severe storms. And the answer is yes. It's not a greatly elevated risk, but there is an elevated risk for tornadic development from Little Rock back through Fort Smith. You can see Texarkana, areas off to the south and southwest, including Dallas and Fort Worth, Waco, Austin, all included in this elevated threat area for potential tornadic development. San Angelo, not technically included, although they do have that area included in that broader area where there could be some wind or hail. But it looks like the tornadic threat's just off to the east-southeast of San Angelo and then heading down to San Antonio. You can see that all the way back through Del Rio. We have that elevated risk. So that's where we have the potential for the severe weather. In addition to that, we have to watch out for potential excessive rainfall. And here we have a very good chance for flash flooding. We've already had some advisories out and some flood warnings for portions of Texas, and we'll take a look at that. But this is a level 3 threat, elevated threat for excessive rainfall or that flash flooding potential. So we've got to watch that again. Del Rio up through Rock Springs, Campwood, Junction, and all of this not far at all from Kerrville. We keep talking about Kerrville because this was the area that was hit on July 4th with the flooding you heard so much about with Texas, just catastrophic and deadly flooding that took place there in Texas. So they're going to be watching this, again, very, very closely. Everybody really needs to. As far as the level 2 threat, it extends through San Antonio, up through Kingsland, Johnson City, again, areas farther to the north and northeast. There's another area with this elevated threat back across Arkansas, southern Missouri, Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma here. This includes Springfield and Branson, back down through Little Rock, Memphis there as well, the boot heel of Missouri in this elevated risk. And we're getting some flood advisories already for portions of southern Missouri. So this is all in play. You can see, again, some of the various outlooks here and warnings. Let's take you to a couple of these. And in fact, I'm going to step over out of the map. I had some of these already highlighted, but it looks like the one around Dallas has changed. I want to take a look at that flood warning that is just off to the northeast there. We'll start down here, though. Some heavy rain, again, a flood advisory here, and then this flash flood warning for Kimball and Sutton. This runs through 10:30 a.m. Central Time, 11:30 here on the East Coast. Warnings off to the north. Let's take this full, and I'll just go ahead and hit on a couple more of these so you can get a look at some of the folks that are under these warnings this morning. Again, very heavy rain in an area not far at all from Kerrville, Texas. So really a situation there where folks are wondering and thinking, oh, this is not good. That's Menard County and Menard City in that county. Not a very populated area, only 1,483. As we turn our attention up towards Dallas, earlier there was a flood advisory for Dallas. Right now we are looking at the area just off to the northeast where we have, again, a flood warning. Heavier rain passed through there earlier. So they're still left with this, about 108,000 people there. That flood advisory for Dallas, which was posted a little earlier, that included 1.8 million people. So obviously the Dallas metro area, heavily populated, a lot of folks dealing with a lot of rain. Just south of Nashville, Arkansas, and to the northeast of Texarkana, we have another flood advisory, this one for about 14,000 people, counties of Hempstead and Howard, and then back up into the southern parts of Missouri. We have this flood advisory, and this is for portions of Crawford and Washington counties here near St. Francois and around Ironton. So this is an area, again, that is dealing with a lot of rain, some of the heavier rain just down to the south of that and heading over towards Perryville and Cape Girardeau. Now, I used to be the chief meteorologist in St. Louis at KSDK, have a lot of family back in the Midwest, absolutely love St. Louis. Some of these areas seeing some of the heavier rain here. Again, they're always mindful of it. You've got a lot of rivers and creeks down here that can rise very quickly. Of course, Mississippi River rolling here. So it's not quite to the Mississippi, but we do have a lot of the tributaries there that are seeing some very heavy rain this morning. All right, want to talk about St. Louis a little bit more here. And while they're not dealing with any severe weather, there is rain around the St. Louis metro. And this is 6 months after an EF3 tornado took the home of a woman. She is still struggling to keep her family safe due to dangerous housing conditions. We have the story from Jordan Burrow. She reports.
All I could do was cry because everything was just destroyed.
Confusion, sadness, and disbelief is what Damika Williams says she felt May 16th, the day an EF3 tornado ripped through St. Louis, taking everything she and her 5 children had. 6 months later, she says she's still struggling to keep her family safe.
They call themselves spray painted, and then all of a sudden happened yesterday when the people came, we had noticed that we could see it again.
Williams now lives in this Tower Grove East home, where she showed First Alert for mold on the ceiling. She says the landlord had someone spray paint over it. She says after the twister, the Red Cross assigned her a case manager, who then connected her with the landlord of this house.
That's why all the nets are around, because that puddle of water.
Besides the leak and mold, along with exposed wires on the house's exterior, the mother says there is no working heat.
I have to have my oven on just to heat my house up. My kids are staying with a cold every other week.
First Alert 4 began digging into the landlord, Vernon Gentry's background. Court records show in June, the city of St. Louis issued a warrant for Gentry's failure to appear in court for a March housing violation for another property. The website for his realty LLC appears to be working, but when you click on anything, there is template text. We called the number listed on the website. No answer. Williams showed us numerous text messages between her and Gentry where he says, in part, "Why are you staying? You're stupid, and you can expletive off and stop trying to play a victim."
I am fed up. You want rent money, I want heat. I want my eyes to stop burning, and I just want to live comfortable. That's it.
Williams' neighbor tells me he also has mold in his unit. These photos show what appears to be black mold in his bathroom.
I didn't do anything. They scrub on it and stuff. I'm painted.
I just feel like they taking advantage of us tornado victims.
So that tornado again happening about 6 months ago, that EF3, it really speaks to just how long some of the recoveries can be. And a lot of times, we'll cover different weather events, we'll talk about things, but the stories go so much longer. That's why we spend a lot of time over the past year talking about recovery efforts around western parts of North Carolina and Asheville from Helene. And we've been talking a lot about the recovery efforts in Jamaica and now Cuba from Melissa, which again hit that area about 3 weeks ago. Fortunately, as we check out the tropics right now, we can see things are very, very quiet. Cuba and Jamaica enjoying a beautiful start to their day today. It is quiet in the Caribbean. We do have a little bit of cloud cover down to the south. The Gulf is quiet. Things are looking good here along the East Coast. We've got a frontal boundary that is off to our east and southeast. And while we have a few clouds out there, you'll see that in the forecast. It's really not too bad right now along our coast. The rest of the main development region looking pretty good. Some clusters of showers and storms here, but nothing organized. And at this point, it doesn't look like we're going to see anything organized over in the eastern Pacific as well. We have, 9-10 days or so left for the hurricane season in the Atlantic, and no tropical activity expected over the next 7 days. Here's a look at our coastal waters. Again, we do have some low clouds. Almost looks like maybe some sprinkles here off in the distance. We've been dry across Hampton Roads this morning. It looks good from the Thompson Creek Window Company sky view. Quick look at our boating forecast. You're going to find out there on the water, the winds easing a bit later this afternoon. We have northeast winds 15 knots this morning with some occasional gusts to 20, but easing, dropping off to 5 later today. Same general trends with the winds for our coastal waters and our high tide. We just came through. We've got a low tide at 3:22 this afternoon. All right, we are going to take a short break. And coming up in 2 minutes, we're going to take a look at that volcano erupting in Indonesia. I mentioned we've got cold weather coming. Why it could be a colder than normal start to the winter season with December, what you can do to prepare your house and your car. And we're going to have more on tracking 3i Atlas, that interstellar comet. We'll talk about it right after the break. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We're going to turn our attention from the Western Hemisphere over to Indonesia, and specifically we'll head into Java here and to the highest mountain on the island of Java here. Indonesia, folks there are on high alert after a volcano erupted several times yesterday. Take a look. This is Mount Semeru, the highest peak on Java Island, blanketed several villages with ash, forcing more than 10,000 people to flee their homes. The eruptions unfolded throughout the day, leading authorities to raise the volcano's alert level to the highest possible. Now, fortunately, no deaths have been reported, but that wasn't the case during the volcano's last major eruption, which took place December of 2021. 51 people died and hundreds more were burned after Mount Semeru erupted. So certainly something we will continue to monitor, and we will let you know. While we're overseas, let's head to the UK. You've got Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom here. Some of the northern parts of the UK, very, very chilly, really experiencing their first cold snap of the season. Check it out. This video shows the snowfall in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. Temperatures in some places fell below zero overnight, and snow and ice has already shut down dozens of schools and is expected to cause significant travel delays. London got its first snow of the season as well. Some snowflakes there. Pretty wild to see that early reminder that, yeah, the colder air is coming. And we're going to turn our attention back to the United States and talk about why it looks like we could deal with a cold and maybe even a snowy start to December for parts of the country. Now, I've got the upper level winds here. These are winds at 250 millibars. That's way, way up there. We look for the jet stream, and I really want to take you to the North Pole here and draw on general kind of wind flow around the North Pole. we have this thing called the polar vortex. And we're going to get into how this impacts our winters here. But those winds spinning around, that's your polar vortex, and a weakened polar vortex is expected to cause a dramatic weather pattern change in the northern hemisphere by allowing frigid Arctic air to spill south. It could be one of the earliest significant polar vortex disruptions on record. We'll see. Scientists say it's still really difficult to predict exactly where the polar vortex will deliver the icy blast, but it's something we're watching. All right, let's take a look at how this works. Basically, you've got these strong winds circulating around the northern part here up towards the North Pole, and that pins up the coldest air. When these winds are really strong, when the polar vortex is ripping, it's almost like a hedge or a fence kind of pinning up that cold Arctic air. When the polar vortex weakens, that allows some of that colder air to escape, and it can seep southward across Canada and down into the northern and northeastern United States. We certainly have seen some colder blasts. Sometimes it spills a little farther to the west, but into the northeast, we could be talking some very, very cold conditions as we get into December. We will see. So you know we've got cold months coming ahead. We're coming up on December, January, and February. And with this disruption to the polar vortex, it could be even chillier. There are some things you can do to make sure your home and car are prepared for these colder months. Megan Bragg with our sister station in Charlotte verifies.
Our source is David Undercuffler, editor-in-chief at Autolist, Firestone Complete Auto Care, our WCNC Weather Impact Team, and the Charlotte Fire Department. The first question, should you check your tire pressure when there's a cold snap?
You should definitely at least check your tire pressure when it gets cold outside. The general rule of thumb is that for every 10 degrees that the temperature drops, your tires lose about 1 psi.
Firestone Complete Auto Care says PSI means pounds per square inch. They say low tire pressure could lead to increased stopping time, and you could skid more easily on wet pavement. So we can verify that, yes, you should check your tire pressure when there's a cold snap. The next question, should you switch your fan setting to clockwise in the winter? Our WCNC Weather Impact Team explains that setting it clockwise helps push warm air trapped up high along the walls and eventually down to the floor. So we can verify that, yes, you should switch your fan setting to clockwise in the winter. And finally, can you leave your space heater on when you go to bed? The Charlotte Fire Department says space heaters are one of the leading causes of house fires, especially when unattended. They say keep your heaters at least 3 feet away from anything that can burn, like bedding, furniture, and curtains. Also, turn them off if you leave the room or are going to bed. So we can verify that, no, you should not leave your space heater on when you go to bed. Make sure to turn it off if it's unattended. With your Verified, I'm Megan Bragg.
All right, some good things to remember as those colder months quickly approach. All right, NASA is sharing some new images of an interstellar comet. Check it out. Now, these images were captured by various NASA spacecraft between September and October. NASA had been unable to share them until now because of the government shutdown. And you might be wondering, why is this such a big deal, right? Astronomers first detected the rare comet known as 3I Atlas in July. It's only the third observed interstellar object, or ISO, to originate outside of our solar system and pass through it. Really cool stuff. And by the way, some of the images that we just showed you of 3I Atlas came from a spacecraft that were part of NASA's Punch mission. Now, earlier we had somebody from NASA come on and talk about the Punch mission. And the Punch mission, that stands for the Polarimeter to Unify the Corona and Heliosphere, studying solar winds and the outer atmosphere of the sun. Well, while this comet came through 3I Atlas, they were able to spot it, and they actually, that wasn't part of the plan. Punch was going up there to do something else, but they're like, hey, look, we can track it. Not only were they able to track that, but they were able to get some more images from our Mars, one of the Mars rovers, and there was another one with one of the satellites that's mapping Mars kind of as it orbits Mars. So we are getting all of this great information, this cool stuff on the comet. Again, 3I Atlas, and in case you're wondering what the name is 3I Atlas, 3I and then Atlas stands for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. Sounds pretty interesting, right? That system is out looking for anything that could ever potentially cause harm to Earth or impact Earth. I will state, 3I Atlas is not a threat to the United States. It is passing far out there, but it is still really cool to see this and to think that they can study this now using some of this instrumentation NASA has to understand the origins of a comet that came from outside the solar system. As I mentioned, this is only the third one that we've been able to follow and study. So it's really, really a neat thing. All right, we are going to turn our attention now to the drought monitor. Then we're going to get into our outlook for Hampton Roads. Let me start by showing you some of the differences here with this brand new drought monitor. Just came out early this morning, and you can see there are some areas still shaded in red. One area that we're looking at down here in southern Texas, a little bit drier. There's some more extreme drought southern Texas, but there are areas that are seeing big improvements. As we head out west, California, remember the atmospheric river, all that rain that's been coming in for the past couple of weeks, that has knocked California back into a good state. They need no more rain right now for central and northern parts of California. Still a little dry down around Southern California, LA down to San Diego, but they're really doing much better. They had some moderate drought there for parts of California. Up in Washington State, there was extreme drought, now just severe. That's an improvement. As we look back across the Georgia-Florida line, this is an area where it's actually gotten worse. There's now more extreme to exceptional drought down there along the state line. Up in the Northeast, they've had improvements as well. No more extreme, now just severe drought there. And things have gotten a little bit worse here across north central North Carolina. There's now moderate drought right there. For Hampton Roads, we haven't seen any significant change. We're still doing fine across our immediate metro area. Still a little dry down to the south. All right, we are 35 days until Christmas. I bring this up because we have one of the big holiday events going on across Hampton Roads. Saturday evening, the grand illumination, 53 degrees, mostly to partly cloudy. Chance of a shower, I really think maybe a little earlier in the, say, late afternoon before the start of the parade and the grand illumination. There might be a few passing showers we're going to be watching, maybe a stray storm, but I think as we go for the actual illumination in the evening, things look good. Thanksgiving, 7 days out. How about the travel forecast for next Wednesday? A big getaway day. It looks like it's going to be wet here in the mid-Atlantic up through Boston. Chances for showers down around Atlanta. Better for Orlando and New Orleans. Looking good through the central U.S. Skies are going to be partly to mostly sunny and really pretty good for most of the western U.S. as well. If you're headed to Seattle, a little wet weather there. Here's our forecast for the weekend. Saturday, 70. We will see that chance for wet weather. Pretty isolated, maybe isolated to scattered, but into the evening, things should get better. Sunday will be a lot colder, so we want folks to know that. As you can see, skies are mostly cloudy right now. Temperatures today around 56 degrees. Infrared satellite pictures not really showing a lot, but the visible satellite pictures starting to show more of that cloud cover. And I do expect that across the area. We are dry, but we do have mostly cloudy skies today. As we look forward, our temperatures are only going to be in the mid to upper 50s today. It will be a little warmer tomorrow. A few stray showers possible tomorrow, but the better chances for wet weather. Maybe a little shower coming through Friday evening, but into Saturday, that's when we'll look for some more of those isolated to scattered areas of wet weather. And then later in the afternoon, that last batch, things will turn cooler on Sunday. Here's the rest of the 7-day forecast. After Sunday's cool down, we do recover. Temperatures warming up Tuesday and Wednesday, some more scattered wet weather. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Weather Desk. I thank you so much for joining us here. We do it each and every weekday morning. We'll see you next time.